Welcome to the March 2025 Jupiter Real Estate Market Update for condo and townhome sales. I make these videos so that people interested in buying or selling real estate in and around Jupiter can make more data-driven decisions. The median sale price of condos and townhomes in Jupiter is now $485,000. My name is Prindle, your Jupiter Realtor. If you've been thinking about buying real estate in Jupiter or selling real estate in Jupiter, let's talk. Give me a call, send me a text, 786-443-7203. The truth of it is, the sooner in the process that you get in contact with me, the more value that I can provide to you. So pick up that phone, let's go. Data in this report is typically going to run 30 days behind. That's why even though we're in March, you're going to look at February data. Stick around to the end of the video, and I'm going to give you some of my extra thoughts. Okay, ready to go here? Median sold price, $485,000. That is going to be down sharply from $530,000 year over year. First and foremost, a couple of asterisks I want to put on this. First one being, if you've listened to me before, you know I'm going to tell you don't put a whole lot of stock into median sold price, especially in condos and townhomes. There's just too few sales to make this look like an orderly chart. So it's okay to use it as a general guide, but just use it as that, a very general guide. The other thing is, this lumps together condos and townhome sales. The townhome and condo market are completely divergent from one another right now. They just don't look in any way, shape, or form the same. So if you're looking at a townhouse, we're going to want to separate this stuff out a whole lot, the same as if you're looking at a condo. So again, use it as a very general, kind of broad overview, but don't read a whole lot more than that into median sold price, in my opinion. All right, let's look at a statistic that is very meaningful, which is the total number of properties sold. I mean, you don't have to know a whole lot more than how many properties are actually selling now relative to in the past to know how healthy the market is, right? It's not exactly rocket science there. So we're at 45 sales. We're going to be down from 47 sales year over year, so relatively flat there. Look, there's nothing in my view that's going to make this number all of a sudden skyrocket. I think we're on the lower side of the chart here. I expect us to just kind of trade this level and sideways for a while. Hopefully we don't dip down too much further, but to be honest, I'm also not going to be shocked. There's just a lot of kind of headwinds in this market. Once again, more in the condo market than in the townhome market. Okay. Sold to list price ratio. This is going to be the percent properties are selling versus their original listing price. Not reduced listing prices, but their original listing price. The lower on this chart we go, the better it is for buyers. It means there's more and more room for negotiation that's happening. The higher we are on the chart, as we were up here, sellers are getting 100% of what they were asking. Different story now. Now, if you look, it does look like we may be rebounding here a little bit. I'm not sure if sellers are beginning to get the message that we're in a weak market, but the more people that I talk to, the more that I feel like sellers are being a bit more and more on the realistic side now. And I think recognizing that, this isn't the market that we had back here, that this is a much more challenging market now. And there's a whole lot of headwinds that are coming into it. So again, I think the best thing to take from this is, if you're a seller, don't be shocked when you get offers that are below your listing price. And if you're a buyer, don't be scared to negotiate. Days on market, this is a meaningful statistic. This just basically tells you how quickly buyers are feeling like they have to act. When we have a low number of days on market, there's kind of bidding wars, and buyers are much more inclined to act quickly. Versus now, 74 days on market. They could have seen a property last month and it's still on the market this month. There's just no real way to create pressure in that situation. Again, overall rule, not property specific. But, a couple months ago, I said I was surprised when the number fell off and we came out down here. I said I expected it to rise. We're at the highest point on this chart over the last 5 years. I do expect this to keep going up. There's just not a whole lot of buyer appetite out there right now for condos and townhomes. So until that can kind of resolve itself, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. And I think along with that, median days are probably going to get dragged up there. All right, median price per square foot. Now, look, I've told you in the past, I don't put a whole lot of stock in this number. I don't think you should either. Sample size is just too small for this to really be meaningful. Look, we just keep bouncing around between $300 and $400 a foot, and we have going back 3 years now. This will be interesting if we break below this $300 a square foot line. That would be a significant pullback and something I would want to keep my eye on. It would make me nervous if I was an owner of a condo or townhome. It would make me optimistic if I was the buyer, potential buyer of a condo and townhome. So look, nicer condition stuff is still the stuff selling. I keep saying that. So people will pay a little bit more for the stuff in good condition versus the beat up stuff, logically speaking. So just kind of keep that all in mind. All right, overall market breadth remains pretty weak. I think by now, if you haven't noticed on the number of properties sold and the days on market with, sales going down and days going up, if you couldn't conclude that it's a relatively weak market, then we got to send you back to some statistics classes. Look, total dollar volume, almost 26 million. Side note, condos and townhomes are about a 50-50 split of the 45 sales that took place. I think there was 23 townhome sales, 22 condo sales. So it's about an even split, just something I neglected to mention before. But anyways, here we are. Overall market breadth pretty weak, down here around 26 million. Where does it get interesting if you break this $20 million line? We've only done it a couple of times. Things could get interesting and not in a good way. But it can also just be if the number of sales goes up and the total dollar volume goes down, it could just be because there are more value hunters out there and more people are looking for lower priced properties. So we can have more transactions at a lower volume. That could still be a healthy sign if the number of overall sales pick up, right? Again, total dollar volume, I don't know. Don't put a ton into it. That's what I can tell you there. If you've been thinking about buying or selling a home in or around Jupiter, give me a call, send me a text, 786-443-7203. I can't help you out if I don't know you exist. So let's have a conversation. Honestly, it's easier for me if I start dealing with you early in the process. I can add more value that way. The longer that you go through the process without any guidance from me, the harder it kind of gets for me to unwind anything that I have to. So just want to say that. All right, months of supply of inventory. Now, this is my favorite statistic. I want to point something out kind of crazy here. Look at December 2021, 0.73 months of supply, less than a month. Here we are over a 1,000% run up. Isn't that wild? I mean, that's just such a swing. Sellers here, this was not difficult. Being a buyer's agent was really difficult down here. Selling a property was not. Now here, we're in a different ballgame. Selling a property has got much more challenging. A neutral market is designated as 6 months worth of supply, favoring neither buyers nor sellers. I don't really use 6 months around here because this is the 6 month line. As you can see, we've spent more time below it than we have above it. If you wanted a more even number, I would say around 4 months, splits at about 50-50. But either way, we are firmly in a buyer's market in condos and townhomes, and don't let anybody tell you any different because they're just full of it. The only way to get months of supply to come down is if the pace of sales were to increase and the amount of supply were to decrease. That would bring, or the number of active listings were to decrease, that would bring down our months of supply, right? I'll be honest, I think you're going to find more sellers coming into the back half of this year than you are going to find buyers. So I expect our inventory to continue to expand. Definitely something that you want to keep an eye on if you're a homeowner and you're coming into the market, because I want you to recognize how much more difficult it is right now. So that's my big takeaway there. Let's get on to some final thoughts here. All right. I got an email from one of you that was watching the video last month and asked me if I think that defaults are on the rise, and if there's a whole bunch of inventory that's going to come because people can't pay their bills. And I don't think that's going to happen. Look, there's 44,000 properties in Jupiter. There are 123 active list pendants or pre-foreclosure actions that I can find. And I track this stuff because I worked pretty heavily in default during the market downturn. But you know, that number's negligible. 123 on 44,000. It's just that's not a meaningful amount of inventory. Plus, we've had so many cash sales here. You know, it's just not something I would not hold your breath for a large amount of defaults to come in and start buying foreclosures. I don't think that's the move. I will tell you a story. I just represented a buyer on the sale of a unit in the W in Fort Lauderdale. High floor corner unit overlooking the ocean, great view, which was pretty much why he bought it. The seller on that property took a $300,000 loss. They bought 3 years ago and forced to take a significant loss in order to unload it. There's a lot of these sellers who are becoming a little bit trapped, and if they have to sell, they're going to have to accept a loss. And I've had a couple of these hard conversations, and more are going to come up. The vast majority of people have a lot of equity right now. If you bought any time past the 5 years, last 5 year period, you have plenty of equity. The run-ups didn't really happen until 3 years ago. So some people are caught, not a whole lot. It is something that I think people should kind of keep an eye on. But the reason I'm bringing it up is to say, look, if you're a buyer coming in, it doesn't have to be a foreclosure for you to get a good deal. There's a lot of properties right now that the sellers just don't want to have them anymore. And so they're selling at very attractive prices. My job as an agent is to hunt out those deals for you. So that's what I got. Hope you guys had a good month. Thank you for watching. Let's throw ourselves some confetti. I think I can do this. Oh, there we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next month.